Hey y'all, welcome to the Honesty Circle, the safe space to discuss growing in adulthood, mental health, faith, and all the things in between. It's your host, Sierra Elise, and I hope you're taking care of not only your mental and spiritual, but your emotional and physical health so you can be your best self this week. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Honesty Circle. It is me, your host, Sierra Elise. Today's episode, we'll be talking about navigating kind of difficulties in friendships. We all know that growing and developing friendships is a really big part of adulthood when you're creating that community outside of your family. And with that, a lot of times sometimes comes with challenges. And with adulthood, you are growing as a person, you are growing and developing into like who you are and who you want to be. And likely that other person in that friendship is also doing the same thing. And so that alone, when you guys are both growing, not like it means at different speeds, but it could just growing and you're changing into different people, and where you guys once were and what connected you might have changed. And so that's kind of like one, I would say, at way in which friendships are changing and navigating, and become difficult. But I also think too, there's a few different other ones that kind of I want to touch on. There's two main areas. So one being you guys haven't talked in a while and it's been a long time since we've chatted. It's like, dang, are we even friends anymore? And then the other side is someone has been offended. And so in that kind of category, you either are the offender or the one that is offended. And so I want to talk through kind of different ways we can navigate this. And hopefully it helps you if you're experiencing any difficulties in friendships that now, or maybe if you have a difficulty in a friendship in the future, kind of thinking ways to help you prepare for that. Because it is inevitable, and not all of them are friendship endings. Some might be, but not all of them are. And so I want to make sure that you have the tools that you need to be able to navigate that. So, and like I said, this is situational. So like some situations are different. And I know that it can be difficult to kind of speak generically and also utilize it for yourself. But I hope, like I said, I hope you still are able to take something away from this. And so I first want to talk about the one you haven't talked in a while. So when you feel like you haven't talked to someone in a while, I think it gets scary of like, am I able to reach out to them? Like, has their number changed or any of those things? And so my recommendation for that one is pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, send that text, schedule that hangout, because you can't let time keep going if that is a friendship that you are interested in continuing. And we know like everyone gets busy, but I'm when I say like time is gone, I'm thinking like 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Like I would say anything over probably 3-ish months, and you haven't talked to this person. Like try to kind of create that conversation. Life is so short, and I think that sometimes we take people for granted. And if you don't have to be besties, right? But if you just still want to have that some form of relationship with that person, it's okay to text them if you have their number. It's okay to schedule a time to hang out with them, especially like if you went to college and you're no longer in college and you had college friends that you saw all the time and now you're not seeing them. Schedule that hangout. I know there was a friend that I have who she's near and dear, very near and dear to my heart, but sometimes I don't see her as much or I don't talk to her as much. And recently I invited her to the Crispies party that I hosted. And after that, it butt into us like catching up over brunch, and we were there for so long and it was so nice. And so like even if it's a 1 to 3 times, 4 times a year, right, that you are seeing that person or whatever, my recommendation is just at least try. Like life is so short. I have tried to not take people for granted in my life. And so if it's someone that I want to be in relationship with, I'm just trying. My goal is just to be intentional in that. And like I said, this doesn't mean you have to talk to them every single day. But there is some form of consistency that is likely required for it to still be a relationship. And and like I said, consistency is, like I said, it's not every day. It can be a once a quarter, it could be once a month, it could be 2 to 3 times a year. Like, it's what works for you and that person and how often you guys decide. And so, yes, we are busy, but we can't let busy keep being a reason as to why we are not at least making some form of effort. Now, if your schedules are busy and you've tried to hang out and there hasn't been a time that you've been able to hang out maybe as soon as you thought or as soon as you wanted, that's okay. But at least have that conversation, at least make that effort. And I think a lot of times people do like effort and knowing that someone cares about them and that someone, loves them. So that's my advice for someone if you haven't talked to them in a while. If it's a friend where it's like there's no bad blood, nothing has happened, there's nothing, you're not offended, the other person's not offended, you just haven't talked, life has just been life, pick up the phone, send a text. Like, if they cross your mind, that's one thing that I definitely utilize. If they cross your mind, even if you're not the best of best friends, they cross your mind or a memory pops up on like Snapchat or your photo or something like that, send it to them. It's okay. Like, you can do that, especially if it's someone that you are still have that avenue and it hasn't been burned. So that's number one. Now the next one, when there has been a situation and someone has been offended, that one I think is where it's very situational and it gets harder to kind of navigate because as someone who's been on both sides of that, I've been the one offended. I've also been the one who unintentionally offended somebody else. It's so hard being on both sides. Like, I think sometimes people think that the one who did the offending did it on purpose, and sometimes people don't do it on purpose, and the one who has been offended, their feelings are hurt. And so that's also hard to navigate when someone that you really care about has hurt your feelings. So it is a hard situation to navigate, but I think if it's someone that you really care about and you do want to keep in their life, just have that conversation still. I think it's important to take the time that you need to process and prepare your thoughts and feelings. But like, communication is so important. And if you, as a person who felt offended, not that you have to be the one to initiate it every single time, but I do think that it's okay to share your feelings. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing your feelings on how they offended you, then is that a friendship that you want to keep? Is that a friend that you want to have if you're not able, if you are typically able, but with this person, you're like, ooh, I just don't think I can have that conversation with them because I know how they act. I know whatever, they might get offended, the friend, like, whatever, all those different things. So if you don't feel comfortable talking with them, like, that for me is like a ring of a red flag. But like I said, no one's a mind reader. No one's able to know kind of how you feel, or that you have, or that person has offended you. So I think it's very important for each side to take the time that they need to first be able to have that conversation. I know for me, I'm very reactive, and I sometimes, when I speak out of my emotion, it gets blurry, or I don't fully communicate what I'm feeling. So that's one thing. If you're the person who is on the other side, I think it's also very important, if you're having that conversation, to listen with open ears, because it's, you can't be very defensive. Like, I didn't do that, I didn't blah, blah, blah. Like, you can't be defensive. You need to show empathy and understanding, because even if you this time were the one who did the offending, next time you might be the one offended, and maybe not in that friendship, but in another way. And you will want someone to show empathy and understanding with you. And so make sure that you're utilizing that with the other person. Make sure that you are not just listening to respond, you're listening to understand, and fully hear what the person is saying. And then some things to keep in mind when you're having that conversation. Like I said, first, like, take that time to reflect. Also, my advice would be not to text it. I know it's so easy to text like, this is what I'm feeling and this is my thoughts. And I'm good for that. I'm not gonna lie. I will not be the one to lie to you. I am a good to send that paragraph and let that be my thoughts and my feelings. But I've been trying to be more intentional and knowing that text can come across wrong. Text can come across like your tone and how you're saying certain things might not come across in a text message. And so not you can utilize the text to like kind of initiate like, hey, we should have a conversation, but try not to text it. My recommendation is try to meet up, but say if you live in different areas and you're not actually able to meet up, we have great things now, such as phones and FaceTime. So utilize those things to be able to have that conversation. Now, FaceTime, I would say, would be the number one, only because I think you're able to see someone's face and you're able to, I think for both sides, when you're actually able to see the person you're having those bad feelings towards at that moment, a lot of times can soften your heart a little bit. It can soften your delivery. It can soften it when you actually are seeing the person. You're seeing how they react in real time. So that's how like the avenue, what I would say. And it's also like I said, it's important to just take the time that you need to not be super hot-headed when you're having that conversation, no matter what side you are on. If you guys are scheduling it, I think that's something that's also helpful, so that way you both know and no one's blindsided. Because I think sometimes it's hard for the other person if they're not like mentally prepared. You don't want to add to the other person's plate, but it also isn't something that's still important. So like let them know like, hey, can we schedule time to chat? Like I would love to just talk with you a little bit, and you can tell them what it's about. Or tell them like, hey, like I know things been kind of weird, whatever. But yeah. So my other thing too, like let's move into like, how do you know it's worth a conversation? Because not all of them are worth the conversation, right? Like some of them are just gonna fizzle out into the air, and unfortunately, that's sometimes how it is. Now, sometimes for me, I'm not the type of person. I personally am not the type of person just to cut somebody off without sometimes having some form of conversation with them, even if the other person is. I try to have a conversation unless I just feel that like, oh, they don't want to talk, and I'm just like, all right, it's whatever. But how do you know it's worth a conversation? And I think that's a very valid question, because it's like, how do you know? Like, how do I assess this? If someone, especially if you're the one who's been offended, how do I assess this situation in being offended and knowing if I should hold my offense and just never talk to them again, or if I should, talk to them and see what is what. And so for me, it's just like how much you value that person, right? I think if it's like, say that's your ride or die, someone that you've been with, like it's your number one. A lot of times, like you just need to have that conversation if it comes down to if you think you should be ending it or something. Now, if you're not that close, and you feel like you just peeped, because I think it's also different if you've been offended from them doing something to you personally, like specifically, no, they knowingly did it or they unknowingly did it. If they unknowingly did it and y'all are not that close, what do y'all? For me, it's my opinion. What are we talking about? What is there to talk about? We're not actually that close. And this is just who you are as a person, and I feel like you can't argue character. I'm not going back and forth with character. But like I said, it's all situational. So it's very situational if you think you should or should not have that conversation. But I feel like that is where you take your time to reflect. If you, on either side, if you've been the one offended, if you are the one who did the offending, and sometimes you might not know that you did the offending, you just might feel a rift in a friendship and you're like, what's going on? You're able to still initiate a conversation too. And maybe if the other person's not ready, you can just let them know that it's an avenue and you are ready to talk with them when you are ready. So I just think it's so important when you are having that difficulty, like first give yourself grace, on both sides, give yourself grace. We are all new to this thing called life. And I think grace and forgiveness is very important when it comes to these situations, regardless if it's a friendship that you want to continue or not. I think, especially as Christians and believers, obviously forgiveness is such an important like pillar in our faith. And so I think keeping that top of mind is very important. And regardless, like I said, regardless if you are keeping that friendship or you're letting that go, forgiveness is so important, whether they apologize or not. And I think that's something to keep in top of mind. And I try to keep that top of mind for myself, on the day-to-day basis, really. Not everyone's going to be sorry for what they've done to you, and you have to forgive and let it go, and continue to move forward in your life. But then also giving grace, because I think when you are the one who has been offended, offering some level of grace after having that conversation. And I think it's also hard to offer grace specifically. I think forgiveness is one of those things you can do without the other person. But I feel like grace sometimes is one of those things where, well, actually, no, I think grace is something you can probably do by yourself too. Like, you can just in your heart realize, like, hey, maybe they were going through it. Maybe they snapped at me or said something kind of not in the nicest tone because of things that are going on in their life that I don't know about. And so I think it's just important to like be able to forgive and extend grace, because you never know when it's going to be reversed, and you're going to be wanting forgiveness and you're going to be wanting grace. And so it's just very important to just continue to pour out those things that you at one time are going to need, and not like just pointing the finger. And I think why I think like conversations are very important is because from my experience, a conversation can clear up a lot of things. I think sometimes it is miscommunication. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding. Sometimes even if it is an actual offense, like sometimes just talking it out in general can still help you in gaining clarity on what the other person meant. Because I think we also know that we all have these filters, and when we hear things from people and the way we perceive things. So we have our past traumas, we have our past life experiences, we have all these things that are our filters. And so when things are coming at us, even if it's not their intent, even if that's not their goal, we have a filter in how it was received and how we internalize it and how we understand it. And so that's why I think a conversation is important, because it clears that up. In that conversation, you're able to, apologies can be given, solutions can be found, the friendship can even go back on track. And maybe you lose this friendship altogether, but I think to still have some level of understanding is just helpful. And so, because they couldn't have meant it. Right? Like maybe you were just offended because of your past traumas and the past things that you've experienced in life. And so how are you supposed to know what they actually meant if you never talk with them? Like I said, now there are some times where the friendship just needs to end. Maybe there's those situations where you outgrown each other, and you guys have grown apart, and that's also okay. And while I say that's okay, I know it's so difficult. I know breakups, friendships, like dissolving. It's such a hard situation. But I also know that it's going to be okay. It's like an actual breakup. Like I think we think of it as different. Like it's actual breakup. You're going to grieve it. You're going to miss the times, and you're going to have those memories come back on your phone when you're hanging out with them, maybe, or all these things. But it's also okay. And even if you feel that you have nobody else, I know that those friendship breakups, especially when like you live by yourself or things like that, it can be so isolating. But that is what the Honesty Circle is really for. The Honesty Circle is to make sure you have a community of people that know that you're not going through these things alone, knowing that you are able to like DM the page and like get advice, or like comment on the Instagram and start a conversation with somebody. Social media is such a powerful tool, and I hope that the Honesty Circle is a place that people can find that sense of community, and so they know that they're not alone, especially when going through friendship difficulties. So if you're going through friendship difficulties, know that it's okay. You have a friend in me, truly. I love people. I love to, have conversations. So if you ever want to talk, if you need anything, it's okay to just reach out to the Instagram through the Honesty Circle. So that's kind of it for the episode today. I just hope that if you are experiencing, and I truly pray that if you're experiencing some friendship difficulty, I pray that you first seek the Lord first, and kind of getting insight and being able to discern, if this is a friendship that you should continue or not, being able to discern if this is something is worth a conversation or not. But I know that God is with you. God is going to help you navigate these situations. He's going to give you the tools, and he's already giving you the tools that you need to overcome this challenge. So believe in yourself, be confident in it, be confident in what you discern, and take it to God. And if you need to have that conversation, take some time and have that conversation. So that's it for this week's episode. C's 2 cents for this week is to text a friend that you haven't texted in a while. Right? Text somebody that you haven't talked to. Give them a phone call. Especially the ones, like I said, that first situation where it's you just haven't talked with them in a long time. Reach out to them. Make that avenue of communication open. And that's my challenge for you this week. You can take my advice or not. That is just my 2 cents. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of The Honesty Circle. If you like anything that you heard today, please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. And also follow us on Instagram at The Honesty Circle to stay updated on Circle news. Thanks again so much for listening, and go conquer your week. Bye, guys.